Hey, hey, hey. Hey, ladies. Welcome back to
Hi.
What Soul Sisters Say. Um, we have as y'all can see, there's somebody else on the screen. We have a special guest with us. I don't know if you had a chance to look over our YouTube channel, but we've done some interviews in the past talking with some other people, talking about just different things. And we talk about who we would want to talk to and what voice we want to hear. And so, of course, when I discovered you on Instagram, and I started talking to them about it, I was like, okay, y'all need to check her out and we need to talk to her. And it just kind of fell in line, especially with what's going on in the outside world. So I was like, I want to have a conversation with her. So this is the Global Black Girl, is what she's known on all social platforms, correct?
Yes, yes.
But
YouTube, Instagram, yeah. Twitter, it's the global B, I think, because it wouldn't let me choose anything else. But I'm not on Twitter that much. So just Instagram and YouTube is sufficient.
okay, so her name is Marina. So I kind of know because I've been on your website and on your Patreon and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of know a little bit more than them. So if y'all don't have, we're just gonna get right into it basically because for time's sake. But if y'all don't have a direct question, I want to just allow her to say who she is and what she does and that kind of stuff. Okay.
Okay.
I definitely have questions, but she can
I'm
go ahead.
excited for I'm excited for the questions. A really brief overview. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles proper. I like to say Slauson Crenshaw, Janae Aiko, and Nipsey Hussle, like we're all from the same street, like literally the same street. So I'm from LA. It matters because, you know, Los Angeles is it's a large county. It's also a city, but the area where Black people live, we are all in like this tiny little community. So it matters a lot to us to identify with our section of our city. I have lived in Brazil for 5 years. I lived in Uruguay for just under a year. I've lived in Costa Rica for a couple years now. I've owned businesses. I have bought property. I did so with my 2 small kids the first time. And this time I bought a home and moved my blended family here. So I've moved probably 20 or 30 people at this point. I work as a relocation specialist, but I am primarily a spiritualist. I'm a claircognizant. I work with tarot and other divination mediums. And, you know, I do life coaching and just anything that I can offer my experience and my knowledge base to assist, I do. But I practice Ifa. I'm a daughter of Obatala, but I'm not restricted to any one way of thinking, any one belief. I've committed myself to my spiritual walk. So that is what I do with my time. And I'm just happy to assist and help in any way that I can. So I'm looking forward to your questions.
Okay, well, the reason why I wanted to bring you to the conversation is because, I mean, we talk about all kinds of things on our channel. And with the climate that's going on in the universe right now, a lot of people are talking about leaving the country. So
Yes.
that was my main reason. My sisters may have some different questions, but I kind of just wanted to hear, you know, as briefly as you can, what prompted this in you? Because I mean, you've probably heard everybody say, oh, we want to go back to our land or we want to leave the country, like saying it in conversation, but actually doing it and going through the full process. To me, it's fascinating because I'm definitely interested in it. But I'm just curious to know, like, what click was it that was like, okay, that's it?
Well, honestly, I had made a promise to myself when I was a teenager that I was going to leave. Because of what I knew of the history of our country, I knew in a very deep part of myself that it did not resonate with me. I didn't know how I was going to do it because, you know, I didn't grow up with money. I didn't know anybody that even traveled really. except for my grandmother. My paternal grandmother was like a world traveler. And I was really inspired by her, but she always came back to the States. And she even told me, there's nothing out there that you can't get here. This is the best place in the world. And it was like, And being a homeschool kid, I had a lot of time to do research and to do a lot of my own independent, historical deep dive. And I was like, oh no, this is what the country is rooted in. I don't see that changing. I don't want to live here anymore. For me, the moment that I knew that I didn't want to live in the States anymore was during the Rodney King riots. I was about 7. And they shut down, because there was the riots and they had gone on for days and days. They had the National Guard come out and there were tanks in the streets on Crenshaw and on Slauson and right in my neighborhood. And I remember being terrified of seeing troops in camo and carrying guns and armored trucks and all of this. And as a little kid, I was like, they're in my neighborhood. They're not trying to protect us. They're threatening us. And I said, I did not ever want to live in a place that would treat its own citizens like that, because I realized then that they didn't see me as a citizen. And I was constantly, people that look like us have been begging and fighting for recognition since before I was born. And I said, I will not live here as an adult. I won't. So at 19, after I had my son, I said, you remember what you said you didn't want for yourself? Well, now you have a child, a little boy. You cannot expose him to even a quarter of what you've experienced, what you've witnessed. You have to figure this out. So from 19 to 22, I spent that entire time researching, figuring out how much money I was going to need, looking at different countries, looking at currencies, looking at language. I didn't think that I would be able to speak any other language. I didn't have any idea of my capability, but I just knew that I wanted out. And so I had a 3-year plan. And it actually took me, 19 and 2, it took me 3.5 years to actually be able to implement it. But I made some very radical decisions. I didn't finish college. I had paid for myself to go to school, and I was in my last year and a half. And my dad decided, I'll give you a little money to help you finish, because he was doing better than he had been when I started school. And I said, can I just take the money and go buy a house? So I bought a house in Texas at 22, bought this fixer-upper in Texas for like $90,000. It was in a college town. I had researched the best places to get starter homes if you needed to make some money, because at that point I had narrowed down my list to 4 countries, and I knew what I needed, a minimum, to do it. And I hashed this plan. Like, this was my first time. I didn't have the budget to fly to go see it. I moved to Brazil. I moved to Uruguay sight unseen. I moved to Brazil sight unseen. I did not fly. I did not have the budget. Brazil's at the time, the amount that you needed to apply for an investor visa was $50,000. When we sold our house, I was previously married, but it was really, it was my money, but it's fine. It was fine. We sold the house and made we made $58,000. So we had just enough money to apply for the visa, to fly down there. It was like $1,500 or so a ticket, 2 adults and 2 small kids. My youngest boy was like 2, 1.5, and my oldest son was 4.5. When we went down there, and we just had our backpacks. We sold whatever we had. We didn't even buy furniture for this house that we bought, because we could not afford it. Everything we were doing was focused on improving the property so we could sell it, so we could get out. We moved with one mind for that entire time. And so we got on the plane and we left. I had just enough money to make the trip and to do what we needed to do. And that was it. So when I speak to people about relocating, everyone says to me, well, you have to have money, and you have to have, it's more comfortable if you have a bigger budget. But if you're committed to leaving, you're gonna. That was the first time. This time I had a little bit more money. I made different choices because of where I was in my life. blended family, more
Right.
children, you know, needing a different type of stability, me being older. I wasn't willing to be uncomfortable the same ways I was willing to in my early 20s, but still didn't have, you know, as much as some, and I still had to make it work. And, you know, nothing's guaranteed. You just do the best that you can. And so these experiences, and actually having successes and experiencing some failures, I know what I'm capable of now. And I know how to do this, and I've been able to do it successfully for other people, because it really is like, it's really steps. If you apply the same steps, it doesn't matter where in the world you're talking about going. Most of this is mental and emotional. The rest of it, like 20% of it, is the what do I pack, and you know, where do I find to live, and do I need a car or not, and stuff like that. That's 20% of it. 80% of it is how do you feel? What are you clinging to? What are your limiting beliefs? What do you feel you deserve? So it's mostly spiritual and emotional, really.
Yeah, I think that would be like the biggest toll, because, you know, this is all that we know. This way of life is all that we know. So to think that there could possibly be another way of life that would work, and you would be comfortable and happy and have all the things you want, it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around that. So like, what would you say is like the biggest difference that stands out to you the most? Right.
Or in the process of moving? Oh, living abroad. Well, I very purposefully did not choose to live in what we generally accept as first world countries. So I didn't go to Europe. I didn't go to Canada. I didn't go, you know, I've gone to South America and Central America for very specific reasons, but primarily the access to a more agrarian way of life. These types of countries do not have the high level of financial investment in, you know, propaganda and control mechanisms like it is in the States. Like, they're not spraying here, because why? The country I currently live in has less than 5 million people in the whole country. So there's just not the benefit of the investment in, of course there's propaganda, there's, you know, but it's not to the same extent. And also the dynamic, the historical dynamic, the racism, the class system, all of those things, I researched, because I need to know who I am wherever I am. Who am I? How am I received, or how am I perceived wherever I go, right? So knowing that, and a lot of people do this, oh, well, it doesn't matter, and you just need to focus on being you. No, I need to know how I'm going to be received. There's other countries that I would have considered if I was not who I was. Seriously, if I was not a Black woman, my complexion, my height, my weight, from where I'm from, I would have considered other places. But given that I know who I am, I had to act with sensitivity to myself. And it's something that a lot of us don't even want to consider. It's one thing when you are where you are and you were born there and there's nothing you can do about it. It's another thing when you purposefully put yourself at a disadvantage by not being honest with yourself about how you move through the world. I put that at the forefront. Where would I feel most received? Where would I experience the least amount of oppression? Where would I feel the freest? Where will I experience the least amount of violence? I think it's totally reasonable that as a Black woman from Los Angeles, avoiding violence is high on my priority list. It's higher on my priority list than a beach, to be real. You know, that mattered a lot to me because of who I am. Now, if I didn't grow up where I did, if I didn't look the way that I did, if I didn't have the political perspectives that I did, then a lot of other places I could have felt comfortable. But because of who I am, because I know myself, I knew what environment I would feel the most safe and comfortable in, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense for me.
So which environment has been your best experience so far? Because you said you've lived in quite a few different countries.
Yes. And speaking to that too, and I'm glad you asked that question. I just wanted to mention this before I forget. I talk to many, many people who have traveled extensively, who have been on vacation, many more places than I hadn't gone but to one country when I left and moved out of the country. I've been to the Bahamas to visit my grandmother's family. That's it. When I was a teenager. Living in a place is very different than going on vacation. It is. It's very, very different. I had amazing experiences in Brazil. It's like a second home for me. It really is. It really is. The language, Portuguese is the language of my heart. I say it speaks to me. However, overall, apart from the social aspects, because I had more social interactions with the people when I lived in Brazil, because I was in Bahia in the north, and it was amazing food and music and sounds and people that look like me. My lifestyle, my overall comfort, I'm much happier here in Costa Rica because I'm more centered and stable, and I have less of a need for social interaction to the extent that I needed it when I was in my 20s.
So what age are you at now? What age are you at now?
I'm 38. I just turned 38 on Sunday.
Okay, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm 38 now.
That's interesting that you mentioned Brazil and Bahia, because that's the place that I've been considering because of the lines that it falls on. Because I'm in Phoenix because of the Astro lines. I've learned about Astro Astrology, and I don't know. It's changed my experience in my life because I lived in LA for 2 years. I lived in Venice for a year, and I lived in downtown LA. And in my chart, that's on my Saturn square Pluto. So to me, it was the equivalent of experiencing like a Twilight Zone pathway through hell. So
yes,
it's
exactly.
the worst possible illusion of an experience you can have, to me.
Oh my God! Yeah,
anywhere. And that's just where people go, and they go for their dreams to die. Not everybody, because it's going to be different. For some people go, and that's just it vibes with them.
No, most people have it. Yeah, it's where you. Yeah, it really.
But spiritually, it has such a dark side spiritually. New Orleans has a dark side too, because I've lived in New Orleans too. But the dark side kind of minds its own business. The dark side in LA is very invasive to your spirituality. So I learned a lot when I was there. And
let's talk about that for a second. Can we talk about that for a second?
That's kind of like what I want to get into, is more of the spirituality, because I knew your background. I didn't know your spiritual background, but before we got on this call, it came to me in my dream, and then all my experiences prior to this, to us being online, told me exactly where your ancestors were from. Because our ancestors background is, it runs very, very deep energy, and it can go, it's vast, and you can feel energy from all the way from where you are, with the two of us not even have met. That's just kind of like the vibration I'm on. And our background, our heritage is a majority Cherokee Indian. So we have some European, just a little touch, a little tiny bit of African, because you can feel your ancestry line, and you can feel where your ancestors are from. And I don't want all Black Americans to just feel like, oh, you're African, because that's not true. It just depends on where your ancestors are from, and where your people were at the time of colonization.
Yes.
And then if you believe in different lifetimes and things like that, I definitely believe. Like when I was in Jamaica, I feel like that was a home for me at one time. And for me to just be attracted to Brazil, and specifically what you're saying, is a synchronicity to me. And the lines that it falls on are just good vibes for me. So I'm definitely gonna
I lived there for 5 years. 5.
I heard you say that,
and I didn't leave because I didn't think that I ever would. And it's interesting that you bring up the light and dark, because this is something that, like, my husband and I were both from LA, like from the same area. And it's interesting because this is something that I hear a lot, and I have to agree, primarily and especially because of where you were, right? So Venice is like this portal, just like the Hollywood Hills. They're portals for very specific kinds of energies on purpose, and downtown LA on purpose. And so people who aren't from there, that's where y'all go to live. We don't go live over there because we know. Okay, we don't, like, native people from LA, like LA kids, we don't go hang out at Venice because we know that you can feel it. The Black folks don't hang out in Venice.
Black folks don't hang out in Venice.
We don't, not the ones that are from LA.
No, people to me, my experience, people from LA stick to whatever area they're in.
And we know it because there's a reason, because Los Angeles has, and you know, mind you, because of Hollywood and like the whole entertainment thing, you're dealing with portals, energetic and spiritual portals that attract very specific types of entities and energies and deities that interact with folks right around the corner from us. We stay to ourselves. We have like our own spiritual bubble in our communities. And unfortunately, people who come that aren't from there, that don't know that, go and live and sit up under that energy and be like, this place is demonic. And I understand why it would feel like that for you.
Hollywood,
it wasn't like that for us because we don't go there.
Every stretch of it, Marina Del Rey, Santa Monica, all of that. Like it has a light and dark. From afar, it's a beautiful place and it has beautiful views. And you can have I've had amazing experiences, especially with nature. You know, just dolphins and birds and hiking and different things. But when you're down on the ground, and it's a whole different ball game.
I wish I had known you then, and I wish
even worse than New York. Okay.
What you raising your hand for, Dara?
Because it sounds so similar to growing up and knowing what parts of New Orleans not to go in.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking when she was saying that.
Yeah,
I'm like a world creeper. I just creep. I'm a nomad. I'll pick up and go and live anywhere and hang out in any city. And at night, 3 a.m, early a.m. Every city does have a shadow and dark sides, but I think there's just different levels to it. And to me, LA just takes it to a whole nother
LA
level.
has a lot of very specific alignments, and maybe we'll talk about this another time because there are you know, you're talking about the alignments, and I get what you're talking about. I do. And my folks, one of my ancestors built Mound Bayou. I have people in my bloodline that are from Mississippi and from New Orleans. I don't know them. I haven't been, but it's something that I learned later. My grandmother's from the Bahamas. She was born in Nassau, and her parents are from the Out Islands. But I've always felt drawn to Central and South America because I really resonate with it, and it feels like home to me in a very real way.
Yeah, your ancestors
are from here. And I know that, and I can feel it, right? So I understand that. And I think that this is why the work that I do, I've had people, and I had some pushback at first when I was talking about relocation. And then I'd also pull out my tarot cards, and people were like, what are you doing? This is a spiritual realignment. You can't help where you were born, but when you decide where you want to go, it's an act of divine creatorship, and you allowing your intuition, your spirits, your whatever, to help guide you where you're supposed to be. And it's exactly what I should be doing. It's not contrary, because otherwise you're just going to recreate the life that you didn't want. And I knew what it is that I wanted. And I had some business that I had to handle in Bahia. But I also, there was a lot of very heavy holdover from slavery that was really pronounced in Brazil. People that tell you that Brazil is not incredibly racist are lying because they don't experience it, or because they're blind to it on purpose, or because they're there for nefarious reasons. There's a lot of beauty in that place, and there's a lot of heart-wrenching sadness, and I could not stay there. I did my best. I could not stay there. And I'm glad that I'm not there now.
Do you know what your lines were in Brazil? Do you know what lines it lies on for you? As far as if it's a conjunction, if it's a square, if it's
no, not off the top of my head, but I did all of that before I left. But the thing was, I didn't check that before I went. I go see every time I've done this, and it's like this even now. Like I'll tell, you know, my family I'm feeling XYZ, or I think I need to do XYZ thing, and then a couple days will pass and I'll check, and it's like, oh, the alignments are like this and this and that. I have this very natural, I go, you know, and I think because of the work that I do, it makes sense, because you really do have to trust your gut to be a good tarot reader, to do any kind of divination. And so I found while I was there that it was a really good position for me, and that it was a good, you know, alignment for me. Now that's just kind of how I've done it. But that was because I knew that I could not stay happily in the US. I knew it. Right, I knew it. Now, between Brazil and Costa Rica, I spent 8 years in the States, and I was miserable every single day of it. Every single day.
I could definitely see that, especially if you was anywhere out in LA. It just carries a vibe. And I can see that with the States too, because of just
the entire country I can't do.
Yeah, and how it was birthed. Well, how it was robbed and stolen, because it didn't carry that energy prior to what happened to it. So, and then Costa Rica is, I've heard, I haven't been to Costa Rica, but I've heard it's a little bit Americanized. It's kind of like neutral. They don't have a military. They don't believe in zoos. They have free animals. I mean, like the animals are free. And because I remember at a time when once the zoo contracts were up, they weren't going to do anymore. So it seems like it's a very neutral place.
Yes.
It's just not political. And it's organic, extremely organic. And a lot of Americans had moved there, I guess, throughout the years. And so do you see quite a few Americans in Costa Rica? Because
there's a lot of Americans. There's more of the countries that Americans and Canadians retire to. Costa Rica is like #1 still, and it has been for like the last 20 years. But it's still a very small country. I wouldn't say that it's Americanized. It depends on where you live. And this is kind of like where I'm going with this, right? The way, like, we know where we're from. We know what areas are for what. We know who lives where. We know where to pay cheaper rent. We know where the expensive end of town is, The same thing goes when you're looking at other countries. It's the same, because people operate in the same way. There's always going to be a nicer area. There's always going to be a cheaper area. There's always going to be an in-between. That's just how everywhere where there are people, that's what it is. Here, the thing about it is that it is neutral, and there is no military. And that's part of the reason why I chose it. They don't have the same history. This country is tiny. It's right next to Nicaragua. It's between Nicaragua and Panama on either side. I didn't want to be in a country that should, you know, something go wrong, that would be in contention, right, between the US and Russia, and as Panama would be. Nicaragua has a history of social unrest every few years. It's a part of the culture. Nalo knows this. One of the things that I say, like, the first thing you have to do, well, the second thing, after you pick your 4 countries, you have to do 100 years of research. I don't even have conversations. If you book a relocation session with me, I won't have conversations with you about where you think you want to go until you've looked at least 100 years, really 200 or more, but at least 100, because you have to know who that country is, like a person, just like anything else. Panama and Nicaragua are both beautiful. They're almost identical in landscape. Costa Rica, it has this almost this energetic bubble. This relationship.
It's off limits. It's off limits.
It really is.
Costa
and I
Rica
think that
is off limits to the rest of it's off limits to all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Off limits. I haven't discovered why it's off limits. I just know what it's off limits.
No, it's spiritual, because there are certain places all over the world that it's been kind of agreed upon are not to be bothered for energetic balance. And I felt it. And I couldn't explain it because I just know stuff. That's the thing with being claircognizant. You just know. Nobody, you didn't hear a whisper. There wasn't, I just felt it. I was like, no, we're not going to Panama. We're not going to Nicaragua. We're going to Costa Rica. We live on top of a mountain. People are peaceful. Like they have things just like everybody else does, but there's just you feel there's this protection. There's this weird layer of protection. This
so it's
weird,
something you feel in the atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
So what were your 4 countries? What were your 4 countries?
So my 4 countries were Belize, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Panama. Because I had to come up with the list with someone else. It wasn't my own, if it was just me, it was really Brazil and Costa Rica. I was thinking about going back to Brazil. But Spirit loud and clear was like, no.
Yeah.
That part of your life is done.
Especially I want to go on a spiritual walk.
Yeah, but it served a huge purpose in my life.
What would you say? And do y'all have a question before I keep asking questions? I'm curious to know.
As did LA for me, because I did a lot of healing by the water because it's at sea level. So New Orleans is below sea level. So I became very balanced in LA. I felt like I got my master's degree in spirituality because I had to deal with the dark side literally on an everyday basis, just with different entities coming out and coming at me. And Venice is a lot like New Orleans. It's just New Orleans.
It is.
It's a lot like New Orleans, but the entities in New Orleans are extremely respectful. And you have control and power over them, especially if you are 100% of the light. It's easier they kind of mind their business. I didn't find that to be true in LA. Our energies are extremely invasive and they'll come for you.
Well, because you didn't go there for that. People come to Los Angeles, people come to Venice, people come to Hollywood to be taken over, to take on glamour. This is what they're coming for. That's what they come for. If you're not open to that, then it does feel heavy and it feels uncomfortable. And there's a lot of very purposeful and intentional energy that's put in to keep people in a daze. You can't really see the sky. Like you can't, like they spray constantly there. They're spraying over your head constantly.
The gray hazy sky, where there's only sun between 11 and 2, that sky.
Constantly.
And
it's light long, and then it's dark, with like the time feels off. Like you feel when you're there, you feel like you're in, like you're on something.
Wow.
But I was born there. So listen, I was born on a full moon the day after Halloween. So for me, it's like, okay, this is, I could see what was what always. And I was like, this ain't right. I'm going to get out of here as soon as I can. So
my next question is, what would you say is the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself since you have left the country?
Oh, that I am literally unstoppable. Like I have 100% faith in my ability to start over. Like I don't fear loss like that because I know I can start over at any time. I can lose everything and I will figure my way out. There's not a language I can't learn. There's not a culture I can't acclimate to. There's not a person that I can't suss out, even if I can't understand what they're saying. I trust my intuition. Like I'm so tapped in. I feel confident that I can do anything at any time. I cannot be broken. And I did not feel like that.
Wow.
I never felt like that in the States because the line is constantly moving. Like there's a lot of competition for everything, for food, for parking space, for everything. Like it's never ending. Like we have millions of people that come from all over the world to live in my city,
That's
it's a
huge to have that kind of a feeling, because even though, you know, we're spiritual, we're light workers and things, we do sometimes hit a wall and we may get distracted and push back. But if you have that, you know, unstoppable, doesn't matter. Like that's not, I mean, that's something that we feel, but I'm talking about as a whole, as a culture, as a Black culture. Sometimes we see that door shut and we're like, damn, okay, now what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, for good reason. I mean, I understand it. But it took like very committed work. I think that we have to come into some acceptance about when we talk about work, it's not that you're doing the work with some outcome in mind. It has to be done because it has to be done. And as you do the work, what you're receiving or what you're learning will be revealed to you. You can't, people come to me all the time saying, well, if I do this work, will I feel better? If I do this work, will I start to get money? If I do this work, will I? And I'm like, you're making it very outcome focused. The lesson and the benefit is from doing the work. And then what will be revealed to you will be.
Yeah, and you have to want it. You have to want it. And some spiritual beings are here because they're just on mission for those others to follow you into that. And being Americanized has them outcome focused and goal oriented. But
yes,
we have our innate intelligence, we have our survival skills, survival of the fittest, and you can be anywhere and survive. And we're just tapping back into our original instincts. All you have is your senses. If nothing else, you have nothing else around you. All you have is your senses. You have to go off your senses and how you feel and different things like that. So
that's, and I trust that now.
Yeah, because the universe always sends you equal or better. So it's like different chapters of your life. When one rips away, you can plan a whole new situation. You can dream up any type of experience you want. And even if you decide to relocate, you can be here 2, 3, 4 years, go somewhere else, 1 year, 6 months. You don't have to really stay in any one particular place when you're experiencing this one physical conscious life that you know about right now. It doesn't have to be so permanent. Anything you're gonna do.
Yeah,
we do. We are attached to that.
We
I was
are.
just saying,
You're
we
right.
are attached to a lot of stuff. You're absolutely right when saying that. But when y'all were talking about the tough situation and the personal growth, I just wanted to show y'all my affirmation card that I pulled. That says, every tough situation offers me an opportunity for personal growth. So I just pulled an affirmation card before we started, and y'all said it. So that's definitely alignment to focus on the personal growth versus, like you said, the outcome of a situation.
Yeah. Your scope of influence, like I'm always talking about, like, what is my scope of influence? My first scope of influence is myself. Then it's, you know, the environment around me. Then it's the people that I overlap with, and our divinity affects each other. And then from there, right, instead of being super focused on things that we don't directly have any control over first and skipping over our own self-care, we've been taught to do it very backwards. And so I really try to encourage people that you can always reinvent, you can always start over, you can lose and gain and lose and get more and lose and or stay or continue up or whatever. Just be open to it and to release the attachments to what we feel as stability. That's easy for me to say. I have a lot of water and air in my chart. I'm not saying that from a place of judgment. I understand that there's other challenges that I have that maybe someone else doesn't. So, you know, I'm respectful of that. But for me, I think part of what I'm here to do is to open up the concept and have the conversations. Being in the embodiment that I'm in, you know, in this avatar, it's important for me to do the work that I'm doing so that I can let people know, hey, you get to dream different, you get to want different.
Be the example. And teach and inspire. Exactly.
I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best.
Well, that's all you can do is live your life and do you, and then the energies that are attracted to it are gonna gravitate towards you. From it.
Definitely. So yeah, I loved Brazil, but I will not be living there again.
But another thing about moving is you have to know what it is you're looking for and what experience you want to have too as well. You have to know why you're going to a place, or I think some people may figure, oh, well, if I go here, I'll just have a better life in general, but it's not really about that. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for, what kind of whether you want to have, like you said, what kind of experience, what kind of people you want to be around, how you're received and treated is extremely important. Is extremely important to me. I'm on a Sun conjunct Venus line, and I adore the red carpet experiences I have here because I needed that after my Pluto square Saturn experience in LA. So I needed this. So when this wears off, it'll probably change into something else.
Well, what I call that is my lifestyle needs list. It's the list of things that you interact with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and then the things that you would like to interact with that you don't have access to. And when you have that list, and sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 2 months to write the list. You use that list to compare against those 4 countries that you've done 100+ years research against. That's going to help you narrow it down, not going to Facebook and seeing what other people's experiences are, because that has nothing to do with you. Right. That is totally subjective information that you get after you have already discerned for yourself, done the research and used discernment, because we need to come from an intuitive place and then balance that with earth, right? We want to be in our head and have the water of the emotion, and then we have to have the earth for stability and then the fire element of the make it happen and implement. So when we go with our intuition, we do the research in the practical scope, then we narrow down based on what it is that we want. Then we can take subjective conjecture information from other people as it applies, because we've already made up our minds. What everyone seems to do is they'll go and consume tons of videos on YouTube and go to Facebook groups and say, well, yeah, this person said that it was like this for them, so I'm going to make my decisions based on what it is they said their experience was. When 9.5 times out of 10, the people in the expat communities, the Facebook groups of expat communities are 95% of the time older, white, retired men who are moving to said country for their own reasons that don't have nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
Their perspectives are very...
You need to peep into your natal chart too, because those lines are very serious. What you carry in your natal chart is a map, and it'll give you a better roadmap into your decision making as well, which your intuition does line up with your natal chart. But I think it's just when we're off a little bit, or when we're not too sure, it'll give you crucial information that you need. I didn't know how serious it was. The Astro Astrology, they call it it's
Astro Cartography,
right?
Yeah. I do.
But I didn't know how serious it was until I actually experienced the difference. Even in the difference in your health, it makes a difference to your outcome and your life experience.
Yeah,
is crucial to that.
I do natal chart readings in the basic knowledge of self sessions with people, and I have someone that does sidereal also, but Western is perfectly fine. But it is a part of your knowledge of self. You have to do your natal chart. You have to know your numerology. If you know nothing else, if you start there, then if you choose to, or if you're interested and open, then you can find out what spirits, entities maybe work with you. But if you have your natal chart, your numerology, and you work with your own ancestors, you're good. Like the average person, that's plenty. If they find that they are more drawn to more information, because it is more management and it's more responsibility, it is. I talk to people all day. I do lives. I've got a few thousand followers. And I do this. I have people that do cleanses for me. I have people that check me for entities. I have my candles running all the time. It's a practice. but this is my lifestyle and this is my profession. It's my calling. So it's different for me. So when people come to me and they're like, well, what do you do? And do I need to do that? No, you probably don't. And you're not, I pull tarot all day long. So I need to do the stuff that I'm doing. The average person doesn't realize that it's popular to skip and go to the Orishas, but you can't skip over your ancestors and expect to get access to them. That's not how it works.
Right.
You have to do it in
who your
order.
ancestors are. That's you have to know who your ancestors are. And I think a lot of Black Americans automatically think all their ancestors are the same, and that's not true. That's not true.
No, and you can pick one. That's another thing. People think that you have to set an altar for all of your entire bloodline forever. You don't have to do that. You can incrementally add, you can go through, like, I feel like we overthink and we make it so big that it feels inaccessible. And that's another thing that I've put a lot of time, you know, I have a whole 2-part series that I did on ancestor altars. I've had people tell me that they said that I had to have this and this and that, and I need to do this, and then it's got to be at this particular time. That's taking it too deep. When you're ready to do more and you're actually contacting and working with spirits and all of that, that's different. But your ancestors are walking with you anyway because they're in your blood. You are physically manifestation. You're a physical manifestation incarnate of them when they were incarnate. You don't have to do a whole lot because they're with you anyway.
That's true.
So,
and your practices will come to you naturally as well. They'll just come out of you and you won't know why you're blowing on stuff or why you're doing this and that. So your practices are already in you if you sit still enough, long enough, and just let it come from deep inside you. Your natural born practices or spiritual practices are already there. Other people can help you.
Some people have blockages. Some people have very early traumatic blockages. Some people, their chart doesn't really allow, because the language of intuition, the language of spirit is your intuition. And if you are trapped in your head or you're very, very earth-centered, it can be hard because it doesn't make sense. And there's a need for logic. And when you try to logify your feelings, then the message goes out the window. You don't pick up on it. But we all have these imbalances. And I think that we can break through a lot of our contracts that are in our natal chart. We can break through the things that we agreed to that we may not want to participate in, and we want to evolve without all of the trauma. You can do that, but you got to know who you are. So I agree that you need to know your natal, you need to know your numerology, and pick someone, even if you don't know who your ancestral line is. If you say, those are my bloodline who love me and who currently protect me and do not wish me any ill, I'm offering you this water and this candle and this incense, and you draw your circle with your cascarilla. You can do that. Like, that's sufficient. That's a place to start as you grow and you become more comfortable. But if you're approaching your spiritual practice with fear or uncertainty, you know, it's you got to grow into it. And
being too open.
Yeah,
being too open can be dangerous too, because it's very deep when you start diving into the spirit realm. And if you really don't know what you're doing, some things can really come for you. So that's some of the things that I've just learned on my own with some of my experiences.
Which is all more reason why you get your ancestors are going to help.
Some of these energies ain't feeling what you're doing and all this playing around, and you trying to figure it out. You're vulnerable, just like with regular humans. If predators feel like you're around and you don't know what's going on and you're not down with stuff, they're going to take advantage. It's the same thing in the spirit realm. If you are just out here and you're not aware and you're open to everything, you attract the good and you attract the bad. So it can affect your health. And I personally believe it can be the end of your life if you're not smart enough. If you don't have proper guidance, it can be that serious. I've had those kind of experiences where it is that serious, especially when you have huge callings on your life and you're supposed to affect the masses.
Well, see, there's that.
Something is always coming for you.
There's that. And it changes. How do I want to say it? Not everybody is here to do astrophysics or to become a pharmacist or to have that kind of mind for math like that, right? I'm just using it as an example. the fact that I'm here and I don't have the mind to do that kind of math doesn't make me any less important, or what it is that I have to do any less valuable. But I don't need a tutor. I don't need that level of attention and that amount of schooling to do what it is that I'm here to do. So if you're here to be an astrophysicist, then you're going to be given the mind for it, the temperament for it, the things that you need for whatever it is you're here to do. So if you're here to be a spiritualist or to work with the spirit realm, you're coming with a more, probably and more likely than not, a very established egg, which is your spiritual family in the Ifa tradition, a very established, you know, understanding of spirit. You may experience certain things in your life or the family you were born in to help prepare you for that. But not everybody has that, but all of us are connected at the bare minimum. And I think that this idea that, like I said, this is what I do on a daily basis, but I don't want people to feel like they need to be at this level of involvement, because when I'm not working with tarot or talking to people about spirituality, then I am educating myself and working with other people who are more advanced than I am, and I'm researching more and studying more. This is what I do with my life. Not everybody needs that. But what we do need to do is be connected and understand that our lives, all of us have spirit, and all of us have a necessity to be aware of it, because when you're not aware of it, it makes you vulnerable. And that's how people end up getting walk-ins and being taken over and all kinds of stuff and under all kinds of influences, because they are not comfortable with understanding their spiritual self. It is a part of you. The extent to which it, you know, your calling is, I don't know. I can if I want to, but off top, I don't know. But we have to be open to understanding that. And this is very much so connected to where you relocate. And that's why I do the work the way that I do it with people. I don't just do relocation. I look at you as a whole. Yeah. I consult tarot, I consult spirit. I asked somebody yesterday, I got on the phone with her and I was like, we're not looking at your chart right now. We need to talk about this. And she was like, why do you say that? I said, I don't know, but that's what we're going to do, because that's what I'm feeling. Right. That's what I'm feeling. Because this is getting ready to not be in alignment with you, and you don't know it because you're trying to make an intellectual decision about something that is not intellectual.
Right, and it doesn't work like that. Right. So definitely doesn't work like that anymore.
Things have changed so much. This time really flew by.
Wow.
I have like 5 more minutes and then I have another appointment.
I know, but this was so good. I hope we can talk to you again. We're gonna wrap it up, but if you want to just, well, you're the Global Black Girl on all social. I think we already said that.
Yeah, it's easy to find me.
So I'll try to figure out how to get this video to you. Maybe you can put it on your YouTube or something like that.
I will.
I have to figure that out first. So
okay, no worries.
Have a little patience. But before you guys click off, click like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button. You can hear what Soul Sisters are saying. All right.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It's been interesting.
I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Take care.